I think music just expresses what we feel, sometimes in ways that we're not able to put into words ourselves. And so, yeah, it can be cathartic. Sometimes it can just help us get those emotions off our chest. Sometimes it makes us feel like there's somebody else that understands us, which can, make you feel a little bit less lonely in some situations.
Do sad songs often cop blame for causing people to be depressed, or even in worst case scenarios lead to suicides?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there have even been court cases in the US over things like that, particular artists being blamed for their connection with the suicide of some youths. But I don't think we can actually blame particular songs or particular genres of music. It just unfortunately can have a negative reaction with some listeners, really.
And when we talk about listening to music when you are feeling down or depressed, I guess it's important to differentiate the difference between depression and sadness, because sadness is not something that it's necessarily bad to feel, is it?
Definitely. Sadness is a normal, healthy reaction to things. It's from an evolutionary perspective, it's an adaptive emotion because it makes us actually kind of stop what we're doing and stand still and think about what's going wrong in our life and what we may need to change to make things better. So sadness itself is a quite healthy and normal reaction to things. But depression is different when it's heading towards clinical depression, because people with depression, rather than actually being able to reevaluate their situations and come up with strategies for improving things, often find that they just get stuck in cycles of negative thinking and they don't find it easy to come out the other side of that. And they often actually feel less motivated to do practical things to help them change their situations than they would if they weren't feeling depressed.
Now, looking at your study and the investigations that you've been doing into this area in music and mood, so you took people and what did you ask them to listen to?
Well, we've had a few studies. Probably the one you might be thinking of is we asked people to think of a song that they knew made them feel sad, that they personally find sad, and we asked them to listen to that. And we were looking to see whether or not maybe there would be some cathartic value and whether they would actually report feeling better after they listened to it. But we did find that actually nearly everybody reported feeling worse after listening to that song. And, for most people that's okay. It's good to spend a little bit of time with your feelings of sadness. But if you're actually already at dangerous levels of depression, that could be not a good thing, really, to have those feelings intensified.
So if you are depressed, can listening to sad music, can it be dangerous?
Yeah, I think so. And it's hard to generalise here because everybody's experience is different. But I think for a lot of people, when they're at very severe levels of depression, clinical depression, I think that it can be a dangerous thing. The problem is, of course, you don't feel like pulling out a piece of party music when you're in that mood. But I don't think it's got to be like that. You don't have to really pull out something very upbeat that can be a bit jarring when you're feeling depressed. But at least if it's music that's got a positive message or that maybe reconnects people with a good time in their life, I think that for many people that can be a more effective strategy.
For people who are depressed, when they are, what are they hearing or taking from a song that those perhaps in a better headspace are not? If you're not depressed and listening to a sad song, are you hearing things differently or taking different things away from that song that maybe someone who is depressed is?
Yeah, I think it's very much to do with the thoughts and the memories that the song may trigger. So somebody with sort of fairly healthy thinking patterns might listen to a song about something that happened in their past that might have been a negative experience. It reminds them of a bad time in their life. And they might think to themselves, oh, isn't that great that I've moved on from that and things are so much better and I don't have to deal with that situation anymore. Whereas a person with a tendency to depression might listen to a song that connects them to a bad time in their life, and what they may think is, why do these things always happen to me? I'm never going to get over that. So it's just a completely different thinking pattern that can be triggered by the song. So it really has to do with what are the habitual thinking patterns of the individual that's listening to the music rather than what the music itself is. But what we do find is that when people become a little bit more aware of the thinking patterns that are triggered by music, they can actually begin to use music a little bit more consciously, a little bit more deliberately, to try and make sure that positive thoughts are triggered by the music that they listen to.
We're speaking to Sandra Garrido. She's a researcher at the Western Sydney University. Now, what happened when people were asked to listen to a piece of music that they knew made them feel happy? Was there, I guess, different results between those who were in a good mental space and those who were depressed?
Yeah, everybody reported feeling happier afterwards, but there was a much bigger difference for the people who were depressed at the beginning of the experiment than for the healthier people. So in other words, their depression levels dropped so much after listening to their happy song that they were in a much better state than they were when they first came in for the experiment. So it just goes to show that even though that's not necessarily what you feel like listening to at the time, that it can have a dramatically positive effect, particularly for people with depression, if they can find the right song that will do that for them.
I think there was reading an article that you wrote for the conversation. There was quite an interesting example that you cited in there about a young woman who suffered from a negative body image who actually found a song that made her feel better about her self-image.
Yeah, and she reported that once she discovered that song could make her feel so good about herself that she would actually use it every morning to start her day, so that she was starting her day with really positive thoughts about herself. So it was really good to read that response.
So why don't we just listen to happy music when we're feeling depressed then?
Well, I mean, as I was saying before, sadness is adaptive. We are programmed to know that is a good thing to do when we're feeling sad. It's a good thing to withdraw a bit socially, feel our emotions, face our emotions, think about our problems. So the brain is actually rewarding that behaviour. But the problem is, for people who have a mood disorder like depression, it's not working. So they often have the same motivation, the same rational goal as everybody else who does it. It's just that unfortunately, because of the breakdown in the brain chemistry and things like that, it doesn't work for people with depression like it does for other people.
So, Sandra, when you are, feeling a bit down and need a pick-me-up or wanting to listen to a happy song, is there one particularly that you like to turn to?
I love classical music. I can't say that there's any particular song, but strangely, although I'm not into gaming and I've never watched an anime film in my life, a lot of the gaming music and anime soundtracks are just really powerful, and they do give me a real pick-up. So I like to just put on kind of a mix of a bit of that music, and suddenly I feel like I can tackle anything again. So that really works for me.